This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Sadro is running out of time to claw his way back to Gaspers in the points, and while it's mathematically possible, the form of both drivers this season has indicated it's more like a hope and a prayer for the American. But with each race, the sun rises anew, especially when you're in the land of the rising sun. Japan plays host to today's event as we get ready to watch round 9 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Stefan Schlacher. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Steph, this is something of a departure for the Weekend Warriors. The official SRF series is running Suzuka's West Circuit, but because of the lack of pit stalls, the Warriors have been forced to use the GP course.
Well, also from me, Suzuka Kara Konnichiwa. And Joe, I get the reason why they use the full layout, obviously because of the pit stalls that the West layout doesn't have. I just don't like it. Either way, we gotta stick to what we have, and don't get me wrong, it is still an incredibly fun and challenging combination. It's gonna go up and down, left and right in all various speeds, plus there's 2 long straights on this Honda test track. Let's crunch some numbers though here real quick. 17 turns are marked out around these 5.8 kilometers. That's 1 turn roughly every 342 meters, meaning even though we have 2 long straights, these guys still are going to be turning for quite a bit each lap. To make matters worse, these cars possess, everyone with me, on-throttle understeer and off-throttle oversteer. To better showcase you those problems, let us send you trackside now with our GSRC lap guide.
Alright, we're in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Suzuka. Down into turns 1 and 2, this is going to be an incredibly tricky braking zone. The car is going to feel very unsteady if you're really pushing, and that means you can expect a number of spins, especially if drivers wind up battling too wide. Try to square off a late apex, and from out of there, you'll set up for the S's. Staying on the racing line through here will be critical to a good lap time. In fact, it'll be a lot more difficult to gain time, while it'll be very easy to lose it. Expect it to be mostly single-file racing through here unless someone gets desperate. Set yourself up on the exits for each subsequent corner until you come up to the final left-hander. You should be able to take this flat out, but don't let the car understeer off into the gravel. Now, through the Dunlop curve, you'll bring the car off to the left on exit. That's because you'll want a nice straight shot into Degner 1, where it's best not to clobber that inside curb too hard. Then, before you have time to think, you're braking for Degner 2 with its heavy banking. Carrying your momentum and keeping the car from getting sideways will give you the most speed through here. After that, you finally approach a potential passing spot, the hairpin. If you do try to overtake someone, just be careful that they don't take a late defense with the curved approach. Nothing special here, just try to get a late apex and put the right pedal down as soon as you know it'll stick. Even though this is one long curve, in the SRF it's effectively a straight because you're going to be flat out all the way until Spoon. And while you might be tempted to try and pass into Spoon, there's surprisingly little braking into this double apex left-hander. This is another critical spot for a good corner exit. It takes you onto the backstretch where you'll find it climbs pretty steeply uphill. At the end of it is the notorious 130R. It only requires a little lift, but once again, watch out for the curbs in this car because it bounces around way too easily. Finally, there's the Casio Triangle. This last chicane is probably the most popular place for passes, but as with all chicanes, taking it side by side will slow you both down greatly. Careful with the apex curbs, get the power down, and shorten the last corner onto the front stretch. Battles might start to erupt on your way down into turn 1, but hopefully you've now finished a lap around Suzuka. The you see a lap around Suzuka in the SRF. It takes a while to get around here, even in qualifying trim. But the Weekend Warriors is brought to you once again by Sim Stickers. Whether it's button boxes, steering wheels, or keyboards, they have you covered. You can find out more about them at simstickers.co.uk. A big thank you to them for sponsoring this season of the Weekend Warriors. And the Weekend Warriors Championship, let's take a look at the Spec 1 points. We have two different classes of points in here. David Gaspers, as I pointed out, is leading the way, 53 points. Now, considering it's 100 for a win, that means that as long as David keeps showing up and has decent finishes, then it's going to be very difficult for Daniel to overtake him. The only change that we see in those top five is they're down for fifth, where Michael Shaw brings himself up. I guess the UK has since recently changed their flag, though. Let's take a look at the Spec 2 Championship. What is that sitting like?
Well, Joe, it is all about Ian Haycox. There, 334 points to his name, 53 already in the pocket for him. Jeff Jacobson, the United States driver, he is 48 points already behind Ian Haycox. As you can see, it's 3 from the US, 2 from the United Kingdom, and the second one coming up right now. Adam Bradshaw, he's in third place, 56 points already back. Ian Haycox, but that's not really the story. It's all about that second to fifth place, because that's really tight. Only 30 points there between Bob Kern. He gained 1 spot over Aaron Fugly for that fourth place. 2 points between Bob Kern and Adam Bradshaw, and then we have Aaron Fugly, 71 points in total behind in fifth place, but still quite in reach of that second place, Joe.
In case you've never watched this series before, the Weekend Warriors, as we mentioned, has a 12-race season. Now, they also have drop weeks, which is certainly going to help out with the championship for Gaspers, since he's only missed 1 race and he's had 2 second places in the ones that he has showed up to. Now, today's race is 48 minutes long. It's their sprint format, and they still have 1 scheduled pit stop. That is for fuel, since they've limited the fuel cells. Also, watch out for the off tracks around here where they're easy to get. They get 3 penalty points for each 10 incidents that they accrue out on track. They have a spare car waiting for them just in case they get any sort of damage. We saw that come into play a lot last week at Road Atlanta. Will we get more damage on these cars here at a much longer, much faster track? As always, you're watching this on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and subscribe. To do that, just go to their YouTube page, click on the big red button that says subscribed. If you haven't yet, that's when it'll be red. Otherwise, it's gray. And then you'll get all of the Weekend Warriors in your YouTube feed each and every week. Right now in the qualifying, just like we saw in the warm-up, Miroslav Juracek is currently up at the top. He's been fast. You had some question marks, though, Steph. You seem to think that maybe it was a little bit due to the draft with the long straights around here. I mean, think it's still that with Miroslav? I didn't get a chance to watch that lap.
Honestly, I don't think anymore that he had quite some draft in that lap, because that was actually a lap where cloud cover was quite heavy on top of the track. So yeah, I think he had some luck with the weather that time. But he did confirm.
Technical issue there with Steph. But we're now riding on board with Ian Haycox. And we mentioned there is Spec 1 and Spec 2. Apologies for the small technical issue. Hopefully we've got those gremlins sorted out. But as I was saying, we have the Spec 1 and Spec 2. Now, the Spec 2 can be known by their 200 and plus numbers on the car. That's how you know a driver is competing for that, which is effectively an amateur category to give everybody something to fight for. All the sub 200 numbers, those are drivers who are competing in Spec 1. Right now, our pole sitter in Spec 2 is Ian Haycox at the dizzying heights of 4th position. He'll be starting on the 2nd row, depending on how the rest of things go. The one that I'm watching out there, Steph, is David Gaspers. He showed up late in practice. He's out there qualifying, but none of his 4 laps have counted yet.
Yeah, it's quite a story right now, and it's rather interesting, especially with Juricek up top, which, in case you weren't able to hear that, Juricek, he did put in that 28.1 in practice. Right now in qualifying, a 28.2, which he had weather assistance, he had quite some cloud cover over the track, but still, he did confirm his lap time, which shows that Juricek is today a force to reckon with, and Gaspers, on the other hand, shows that the off-tracks are a force to reckon with.
And you saw on screen the Gaspers abandoned that lap that he was on. He's starting to run out of time. I mentioned the long lap times, 2.5 minutes. So he's really got to hustle to get at least one in. Donald Fitterer, sitting in 8th place out on the track, comes out of Spoon Curve onto one of those long straights. He doesn't really have anybody to help him. It's Michael Shaw up ahead and way too far up for him to get a draft from that. So we'll see if he can manage to get a quick lap here all by his lonesome.
Actually, Jerry McAreevy is just ahead of him on the track. He's now coming into the Casio triangle. And I think that Gary McAreevy is on a fast one right now as he's exiting the Casio triangle right ahead of David Garrido Sanchez.
And McAreevy currently sits in 2nd, and he's exactly 1/10 off. He goes faster at 28.1, and that's good enough for pole. Miroslav Juracek finds himself deposed. And on the outside of the front row, let's not forget in all this, one of our championship contenders, Daniel Sadro, currently in 3rd and still has a chance to try and get up into the mix.
Yeah, Sadro 3/10 away, Shaw 3/10 away, and then it's a 3/10 gap to Ian Haycox. And as we mentioned before, Ian Haycox still the story of this race. I mean, he's still in 5th place, only 7/10 off Gary McAreevy. So Ian Haycox showing what he can really do, and I think we won't see him next season in that Spec 2 class as he once again betters his personal lap time, doesn't improve in position, but Ian Haycox most definitely showing that he is worth that Spec 1 badge.
Elson also going faster. A 2:29 flat is good enough for 9th place. His snazzy new paint job looks like it is helping him out, at least psychologically. As we were watching Gaspers for a moment, we've gone back to Sadro coming up to the Casio triangle. Looks like he's on an outlap, so we're switching to see if Juracek can manage to get back up there. He's behind both those drivers that I just mentioned, also in the Casio triangle now. He's got 0.167 of a second to try and improve. And you talked about the cloud cover before. It is hot out here today, 117 degrees Fahrenheit on the track. Faster for Juracek and back up to the pole. Now less than a 10th between himself and McAreevy.
Yeah, and not too far ahead of Juracek was David Gaspers, who tried to go once again on a fast lap, but coming out of the Casio triangle through the last curve, he actually went on the grass and crashed out yet again. So he really now is on a 1-lap mission to at least set a lap time.
Yeah, he'll have enough time to get to the line, but only one hot lap as we come back to McAreevy. Now through the Casio triangle, the last chicane that leads you onto the front stretch. His fastest, a 2:28.1, was just beaten last time by, and this time he's slower, 2:28.4. He's only going to get one more chance to try and get a time in. Juracek coming out of the Degners up towards the hairpin. Curious to see how many drivers not only will have trouble with the off tracks, but there's a few places I noticed in my practice this week, Steph, where it seemed like some of the curbs are a little sketchy for this car.
Yeah, especially Degner 1 and 2, those can really throw you off, especially outside of the Degners. that really, if you take too much courtesy with that curb, you're gonna surf on the curb and you're gonna go straight into the wall as Juracek takes an off track there through the spoon too wide, was right out sideways too, doing so. So yeah, I'm pretty sure he has enough time to come around one more lap. So Juracek, he still can do better.
This is Sadro now. And he is still in third, has not been able to improve since his second lap out there. Really hustling the car to try and see what he can get out of it. If this one doesn't do it, this will be his last chance next time by. He comes up to the timing line, and he does improve a 2:27.9, the first driver to get into the 2:27s, and that is now pole.
Yeah, these are starting to be a little bit of ludicrous lap times there, but either way, Daniel Sadro showing his worth, as I think Michael Shaw just put himself into fourth place with a 28.589.
And Aaron Vagley is now up on the pole in the Spec too. He's beaten Ian Haycox. So that means we've got a tight fight in both the championship pole positions.
Yeah, that was without any draft. So yeah, great drive by Aaron Vagley. He was the guy that I saw jump up as Gary McGreevy comes into the Kasi triangle for the second last time, maybe last time, only 15 seconds remaining.
It's going to be awful tight. Not sure if he'll get to the line in time. And again, he sits in third right now. This one not an improvement. He managed to get across the line in time. Looks like he's going to be our last car to be able to cross the line if he continues on this lap. Michael Shaw, the first one to get the checkered flag, stays in fourth place. Looks like Bob Kern going to abandon his lap, while Jeff Jacobson, who sits in 14th, now cycles around. Also not happy with this lap. He comes in.
A lot of people coming in. Bob Kern also came in. Who is that coming over the line? That's Adam Bradshaw.
One of our Spec 2 drivers, usually fighting for wins in that Spec 2 race, and he only got 2 laps in. That one did not count either, yeah. This brings us to our pole sitter, Daniel Sadro. There is currently only half a tenth between himself and Juracek, and then it's another 3/4 of a tenth between Juracek and McAreevy. Incredibly close for the podium. As he comes up towards 130R. Can he keep it on track? This is one of those spots where you can easily get that off track. He gives it plenty of berth to the outside. Not sure if this is going to be a fast one, if he's giving that much leeway. We'll find out in a moment, Steph.
Yeah, let's see. Maybe. That's not going to be a fast one.
So that leaves it to Juracek, who is almost right behind him. Ian Haycock's going to abandon his lap just ahead, so don't need to watch him. Juracek to the line. He needs to make up half a tenth to take this pole away. He does improve. Is that enough? No, he is 1/100th away from the pole sitter.
Isanumi also goes into pit lane. That means that only one more car able to improve. That is not the case, because Gaspers will start from dead last.
Oh, interesting. David Gaspers, only one of 2 drivers not to get a lap in, and I'm pretty sure Brian Short, yeah, he is not in the session, so you're right. That's it for our field. Let's go through our starting order for today. This puts a definite twist in the championship. Daniel Sadro very much has an open goal, having managed to take pole position, and his championship rival will be at the very back of the field. Miroslav Juracek, he tried, he improved, he got oh so close. He will be on the outside of the front row at least. If he can get a good start, he could still challenge for that. Jerry McAreevy will be P3, and then Michael Shaw will be in 4th position. Pole sitter in the Spec 2, Aaron Vagley starts 5th overall. Ian Haycox will be next to him, also in the Spec 2 championship. So there's your Spec 2 front row, essentially. Donald Fitterer will be starting 7th with Francesco Bernardo in 8th position. David Sanchez will be 9th, and Steven Elson with his new livery will be 10th.
The 205 of Adam Bradshaw, 3rd place in the Spec 2 grid he will line up in 11th overall. Aaron DePoy, 12th place goes to him. Stevie Ray, he will start in 13th place. Look out for him to be one of the very first cars to take to the pit stalls. Jeff Jacobson, 14th. Seeloff, 15th. Ramon Regalado will round out the top 16 of qualifying. Popcorn, 17th. Gabe Nail takes home 18th place on the grid. Izanomi down in 19th, and 20th goes to Gary Walbot.
Last two cars is John P. O'Donnell, the last one to get a time in at a 2:31.6. 21st, 22nd will be David Gaspers. As we said, Brian D. Short, we expect, will not be starting this race. I said every day starts anew, and it is definitely a fresh, clean slate for Daniel Sadro as they start to line up behind the Porsche pace car. He's going to get a very good chance to try and take this championship back to our points leader. They'll thankfully not do a full pace lap around here. You can see they're just on the run up to 130R on the back stretch, where they will be led to the Casio Triangle. The pace car will peel in, and we'll get 40 minutes of racing here in round 9 for the Weekend Warriors. Once again, brought to you by Sim Stickers. If you'd like to check out to see if they have anything that could help your setup, make sure that you know exactly which button you're pushing. You can find them at simstickers.co.uk. Just a few more cars waiting to line up on the grid. So I'm curious here about your predictions, Steph. How high up do you think Gaspers can get starting from dead last in the field? Looks like Steph is speechless on this one. Can't make a prediction. So as we look on board, you can see just how many cars are up ahead of our multi-time champion. I wouldn't put a win out of the cards, but it'll take some phenomenal circumstances for him to manage that. Certainly won't have much traffic in the way, as we have only 21 cars taking to the grid. Bit of a shame then that we didn't get to run that Western course, since we would have only had one driver shut out essentially, as they were worried about too many being locked out of the field. There's only 20 stalls on that Western layout, but they got the full course to play with today. Let's see if it bites anybody, as the Porsche pace car now leads them away at a nice, cozy 40 miles per hour. Wonder how many drivers will be caught out by that lift throttle understeer as well. Lift throttle oversteer, I should say, as this course requires you to be off throttle on a number of corners, a number of fast corners that are very tricky. Now through the Casio Triangle, Daniel Sadro is going to have control of the field while the pace car peels in. Juracek to his outside. What kind of jump can he get on our pole sitter to try and challenge him into turn 1? He is right up next to him. He is really stacking up the field, waiting a long time. Sadro waiting, still not going quite yet. Boy, he is waiting a long, long time, almost coming up to the start-finish line as the green flag now comes out. It is a pretty good jump over Juracek despite that long wait. And in fact, on the inside of him, he's got Jerry McAreevy challenging for second. They now swing into turn 1 and 2. One continuous corner effectively. Looks like McAreevy is going to be able to take that second place away. A little bit of 3 wide in the back. One car off, but really no harm, no foul. Everybody looks to be through safely.
And David Gaspers already up to 14th place back in the field. So he really had a great start. So there's a little bit of a slide from Aaron DePoy ahead of him. He spins out the snake turns. That means David Gaspers already up to 13th place.
As wrong as 22 cars, not 21 that started this race. So now coming through Dunlop Curve, Sadro making use of this battling behind him by pulling a gap as Juracek manages to get back by McAreevy. Behind them, don't forget Michael Shaw sitting and threatening, hoping that he could maybe get in the mix. Now, out of both the Degners and under the overpass, they come up to one of the good passing spots here into the hairpin.
David Gaspers doing exactly that, overtakes Stevie Ray, now already up into 12th place. What a already drive by David Gaspers through the field. Yes, I was a little bit speechless at the start of this race, but I think David Gaspers will go at least on the podium here today.
He's only 4 seconds back from the leaders right now, and he's up to 12th. Granted, it'll get a little bit harder to overtake cars as he goes on. He's going to get Bradshaw now down into Spoon. That's one more done. Up at the front, you basically have Sadro leading, gapping Juracek just by a slight bit, who is in a battle with McAreevy, and then they've got another gap back to a huge train of cars, which is being led by Michael Shaw. He's in 4th. The leader in the Spec 2 is Haycox, Ian Haycox, right behind him. Then you've got Vaguely, Fitterer, Bernardo, Elson.
Sanchez going super wide in the 130R there. He was so wide he nearly touched the outside barriers there. Either way, he does recover again and slots in behind Stephen Elson in 10th place.
So we ride on board with our leader. Looks like Juracek has pulled him back in. Does he have enough of a draft to challenge down into turn 1? He's brave enough to try and look for it. He's given the inside even as Sadro stays on the racing line, lets him through. Your new leader is Juracek. Back to second goes Sadro.
Elson into the barrier.
Oh, and he scratched up that fresh paint. That runs him down to 18th, 19th, and that's where he's going to settle as we watch the replay. This is a difficult braking zone into this corner, Steph.
Yeah, what you don't see there, it's actually a 3-wide situation with David Garrido Sanchez and David Gaspers on the inside. And Sanchez, I don't know, it's a little bit of an awkward situation. They're 3 into 1, it don't really go. And Stephen Elson is the guy who goes to the left where there's a right turn.
Looked like there might have been the lightest of touches. Regardless, it certainly wasn't what initially sent him into the barriers. After all that, we've been following Gasper's progress, and he is now up to 9th. I think he's going to get one more right here because he's got Bernardo next to him. Bernardo's going to cover off the inside to the hairpin. How deep can Gaspers go? A little contact in front of them. That is Donald Fitterer, who got into the back of Vaguely. That slows him up and actually bottlenecks Gaspers behind him. Or maybe not.
I don't even think that David Gaspers had to lose any stride there. Is he gonna try to push? Yes, he is gonna push. Don't Fitzer there. Either way, he's now up to 8th already as he goes past Francesco Bernardo.
Keeping a cool head with all the action around him. Gaspers is actually still gaining time on the leaders, even passing traffic. He's now 3.5 seconds back from Juracek. Looks like there's one more because we saw Fitterer have some contact. Wonder if he's going to lack straight line speed until he can get his spare car. Because certainly Gasper's making easy work as Sadro side by side through 130R. And Juracek trying to hold around the outside goes a little bit off track. That gives him the inside into the Casio triangle. He fends him off for now, but this is bringing even more cars into the mix. Ian Haycox makes it a 5-car train for the lead.
Yeah, and this is really helping David Gaspers, who now also overtook Aaron Fergley, which means David Gaspers in 6th place, the first chaser of that 5-car battle for first place.
A little bit of a look to the inside from McAreevy, but thinks better of it. Wonder if he's wanting this group to settle down a little bit so that they can try and pull away. Oh, and a big accident behind them. There's Vaguely involved. Looks like Fitterer in there. I think Bradshaw got caught up in it. Trying to see how this started.
That was a very unfortunate situation there between Aaron Fergley and Donald Fitterer. I think Aaron Fergley didn't realize that Donald Fitterer was chasing quite closely after David Gaspers turned in like normal. He lifted earlier to slot in behind David Gaspers and then collided with Donald Fitterer, who was following right behind him.
And Gaspers just gets all the luck. He was at the right place at the right time to just be out of the way of that incident. So now not only does he have no pressure from behind, but he's caught the back of the top 5. I said that it's would take extenuating circumstances for him to think about a win. Well, I think we found those circumstances.
I don't even know if you're able to stop David Gaspers today. He did overtake last lap 4 cars actually, and he gained on the leaders a full second at 27.9 versus a 28.2 for Juricek. So yeah, David Gaspers on a mission.
Bill called him the Ghost. He is currently haunting Daniel Sadro in this race because Juricek is not in the championship the same way that Sadro is. As we ride on board with our Spec 2 leader Ian Haycox, the first to get overtaken in this group by David Gaspers. He's just going to slot in behind. Haycox probably happy to just ride here because the next car back in the Spec 2 is C. Love, and he's all the way in 10th. Almost 10 minutes into this race now. We're going to start to reach the pit window. We'll see if anybody is interested in trying to use that to get themselves some clear track. Coming down the front stretch, Sadro interested in getting himself some clear track as he goes to the outside down towards turn 1. Juricek tries to defend. He holds on to it, and he gets his nose back in, but starts to lose the car. Somehow he catches it, holds on to the lead, but can he keep the momentum up? The answer is no. Sadro, the hard way around, gets the lead back, but too much curb. His car bobbles now as well. He is well offline. Is this going to be enough for Juricek to try and retake the lead? Just nothing doing through the S's. It is single file.
David Gaspers tried to do the same as Daniel Sadro. It just didn't work out though. So Gaspers still in 5th place, but he was looking up strong as Juricek way off track there. Able to slot in right in front of Michael Shaw.
We missed Shaw taking 3rd away from McAreevy at some point in all this action. So Shaw now up onto the podium. Gaspers looking at the back of McAreevy as we ride on board with the DH driver.
Shaw did overtake McAreevy into turn 1, but that was because McAreevy did actually retreat that position, and that is why Gaspers was able to fight for 4th place against McAreevy.
Which I think he's going to get right now. Just got himself a great run off of the hairpin, and that all worked out for him. Meanwhile, Donald Fitterer has had a spin in, it looks like Degner 1. We'll get back to that in a bit with how close things are up at the front.
Now, I don't have any words for what David Gaspers is showing right here. It's just ludicrous. Plus 18 positions already. In 2 laps, he gained 10 positions alone, as he's now working on the back of Michael Shaw, as does Miroslav Juricek. He overtakes David Gaspers for P1 again. David Gaspers up to 3rd, Juricek up to 1st.
Sadro's got to be looking in his mirror and going, what in the world has happened? Why is Gaspers now right on top of me? So your order as they come out to complete another lap is Juricek leading, Sadro 2nd, Gaspers an incredible 3rd, Shaw falling back and 4th, McAreevy 5th, and Haycox rounding out your group of top 6.
David
goes defensive a little bit there.
David Gaspers looking, and now I wonder if he gets up to 1st, will he just continue his stride, or will he race strategic? I guess we will find out pretty soon, because he's already up to 2nd place.
Yeah, big mistake from Sadro, way to the outside of turn 2, caught the AstroTurf and had to bring the car back together. Thankfully, only lost the position in not too much time. From last place to 2nd, and let's see, we're on lap 5? This is just ridiculous.
That's plus 20 positions, folks.
And to make that plus 21 potentially. Oh, this is a very dangerous place to try and do this. Through Degner 1. He is hungry for this lead early in the race. Both of them managed to hold onto it, getting squirrely over the curb. No position change, but David Gaspers willing to make some dangerous moves.
Yeah, David Gaspers right in the zone. He is on the move. He's on a mission. he is gonna take flight once he is past Juracek, and then it's about catch me if you can.
Get back to it later, but Sanchez also with a spin through Degner 1. And I think maybe we're going to see it this time. He's given the inside by Juracek down into Spoon, Gaspers, and the white and black machine. Oh! Little bit of contact between them, elbows out. He has so much time left. I am shocked he's being this aggressive with it.
I don't know. I would say Juracek had a little bit of a slide on the outside, and that's why they crossed the lines. Juracek was quite sideways there. Either way, no harm and no foul. Juracek in second place. Gaspers in first, but for how long will that last as Juracek decides to stay behind for 130 hour?
Nearly 4 passes a lap for our leader to get this one done on average. Just stunning. I really am a little bit speechless. I did not expect him to climb this quickly and successfully, and Juracek is going to pit. So is Shaw.
Juracek says, nope, I'm out. Thank you very much. Michael Shaw is probably just looking for a draft partner right here, trying to stick with Juracek and see what those two can do together. Not the first guys to pit. Adam Bradshaw and Aaron Fergley are the first guys to pit, but they are on a little bit of a forced pit stop because they had to make that one. As Michael Shaw, I think he missed his pit stop.
Hey, what? This is that pit stop for Juracek was bad news for Sadro because I think he might lose the draft here. But now that that's split up the top group, I think we have the replay of at least one of the incidents we mentioned earlier. Let's go to, I can't remember who the first one was. Let's go to Sanchez. And it was so long ago. This is Sanchez coming into Degner 1 out of Dunlop. And now I think it was actually the exit of it that caught him out. Yeah, look at the curb, just bounced the car. Thankfully, did not slide back onto the track and got it woed up in time. And it was Fitter, the other one, with the issue in almost the exact same spot.
And also, I can report.
Or did he have another spin, though? This is a different... This is through the S's for Fitterer. And he's already got damage on the car. Looks like we don't have that replay up. Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, one thing I can report is Aaron Fergley had to park his car now for good, so he is our first official retiree, alongside with David Garrido Sanchez, who also parked his car a few moments ago. So sadly, we've already lost 2 cars after 22.
Back up to the leaders. We wondered whether or not Sadro can keep in touch with Gaspers. The answer is a kind of yes. He's got it down to a half a second from the 0.8 that it was before, using a little bit of the draft, but wow, Gaspers is pushing, locks him up on the way into Casio, smoking the tires, trying to see if he can keep Daniel Sadro back and prevent him from taking points away here at Suzuka. Going to reel him in further down the front stretch. Now less than 0.4 of a second between them once they break for turn 1. We got a couple other takers for pit stop. Stevie Ray and Bob Kern have also come in.
At this point, one has to wonder, what can you do against someone like David Gasper? Starts in the last row, up to first place within 6 laps. Just pure dominance, pure light speed shown there by David Gaspers. I mean, at least Daniel Sadro can stick with him, but the question is, if one of them would pit earlier than the other, will Sadro still be able to stick with David Gaspers or not?
This also kind of tells you how much the draft is worth in these cars. He caught them all so quickly and passed them so easily, and yet, as you mentioned, Sadro holding with him. So is McAreevy as he almost gets into the back of Gaspers for a moment. Goes a little wide out of the hairpin, McAreevy thinks about a pass but can't do anything with it. Also, you get glances of a green car behind them. We keep mentioning him every once in a while. Ian Haycox, credit to him. He's only 2 seconds back, so he hasn't dropped off too greatly. He's keeping very good pace for a Spec 2 driver.
Yeah, he is doing a top job there in right now 4th place. But you can show that Ian Haycox is a very good driver. He's just not yet there of where the top-notch drivers of the Spec 1 class are, like Gary McAreevy, Daniel Sadler, David Gaspers, and also Jurczyk.
A pass to the inside. Sadro's going to try and take it back, but they go too wide through 130R. Gaspers manages to hold the momentum, and he manages to outbrake him into the Casio triangle. What about the exit of the corner? That's going to be the critical thing. And it looks like they are about dead even coming off of it.
You know, at this point, if I would be David Gaspers, I would actually be thinking of undercutting the others, because you have the speed right out, and if you're able to get into clean air, you might as well be able to run away until they come out of the pits again, and then you are pretty much on your own. You just don't have to make any mistakes. And David Gaspers, we have seen it at Zandvoort, for example. He is someone who can make mistakes under pressure.
The thing is, though, I would think he wouldn't want to be in the lead if he wants to try the undercut, because they could just simply follow him in if they're keen to what he's doing. He'd want to make sure and prevent them from being able to just monkey see, monkey do, because they follow right in his tire tracks through Dunlop. But Gaspers looks like he has no interest of letting them by. We've had more drivers take pit stops just to keep you updated. Asa Numi, Gary Wobolt also in their stalls. Not missing much else throughout the field. A lot of the drivers have spread out over this very long lap for such tiny cars. Closest thing we've got is Gabe Nail and Ramon Regalado fighting for 8th position. Oh, and Tapoy with another problem in the S's. He does not like these corners.
And he did actually tow the car there. Let's see what happened for him as we take you onto the replay. We're coming through already the anti-bank corner, and
just a little too much grass, it looks like. Oh, and we missed the pass with Nail? Or did he spin?
Gabe Nail, his car is completely done.
Yeah, you're going to see out of the second Degner. Gets a little bit of a bounce on the rear end.
Curb.
Yeah. We talked about the dangers of those.
It's always about those very damn curbs.
You wondered about Sadro and Gaspers. Well, Gaspers is not going to undercut this time by. He stays out. So does the two with him. There, Ian Haycox now back to 3.5 seconds back. C Love, how far back is C Love? About 12 seconds behind, I'm seeing. He's our second in the Spec 2 race. Last podium spot to that goes to Jeff Jacobson, who is 7th overall.
Right now, let's give you a little bit of an update. Miroslav Jurczyk, he did pit quite early. He's right now 34.6 seconds behind your leader. Now, if I got my pit lane deltas right, it is about...
Sorry, 1 second. Gabe Nail was upside down. Gabe Nail's car was somehow turned over, and I'm not exactly sure how he managed this. Very slow incident, but seems to have given up on life a little bit here.
That's one way to do it, I guess.
Trying to stay out of people's way, and eventually the car finds its way over to its lid. Fitter has now pitted as well. Sorry for interrupting you. You were on a point about our highest pitter.
Yes. Miroslav Juricek, he's about right now 35 seconds behind David Gaspers, and if I got my numbers right, the pit lane delta time is about 30 seconds. So at this point, Miroslav Juricek is losing out to this group by about 5 seconds, and that gap is growing by about, let me see, 3, 4, 8 tenths last lap. So yeah, Miroslav Juricek really the wrong strategy right now for him.
Stevie Ray has got an issue. Sorry. This is once again the Degners, as we're watching to see if we get a pass up for the front. Looks like Sadro going to be content to stay behind, at least into the Casio triangle. Let's see if they pit this time through. They're getting towards the end of that pit window, but all of them are going to stay out.
Stevie Ray, as you said, it's once again the Dagners as we take you onto the replay. There is already a little bit off track. And yeah, because of that, he spins himself out trying to return the track and goes hard over the curbs, backs it up, and drives off into the sunset again.
Well, I think his day might be over because another driver winds up on his lid. The number 11, who has already had his pit stop done, is going to have to take a tow. Just a little too far out into the grass and gravel. A bad bump sends him smashing incredibly hard into the Armco. That's a disappointing finish after last week saw Stevie Ray finish so high up in the field.
You know, that's what... Sorry.
I was just going to say, we are back to our leaders now, which is still the top 3 together. There's only 6 cars who have yet to pit so far, Steph.
Yeah, and that is one of the crashes where I'm kind of glad that we don't have the new damage model yet, because those parts would be flying all over the place.
I'm sure the virtual marshals would be very quick and tidy in cleaning the pieces up, but I can't wait to get that new damage model, because it looks fantastic. So we watch from above, our chopper following the progress of Gaspers being chased by his championship rival, Daniel Sadro, and Jerry McAreevy. Could be a championship rival, but his finish is inconsistent sometimes. His pace, though, very good.
One thing we don't see on that chopper shot is that not too far up the road is Aaron Depoy, the lap car of Aaron Depoy. He's right now not yet a full lap down, but he soon is going to be, as he's now exiting 130. There you can see him on the shot right at the bottom of your screen.
Don't need to go to it, but Jeff Jacobson spun in Degner's 1 and 2 as well. He didn't hit anything, just got turned around and got it going once again. Incredibly, you know what? Stevie Ray must have still had his spare car, because he's getting back out on track and looking spick and span.
Daniel Sadro stays out as David Gaspers and Jerry McAreevy both pit in this lap. So 11 laps is as far as they decide to go. Probably Daniel Sadro will come in at the end of this lap, which means Daniel Sadro really has to put down the hammer now and be able to stick with those two.
Sorry, C. Love has just got turned around. He was in a great battle with Steve Elson. They had been racing side by side, and then suddenly a little bit of contact unfortunately put C. Love back. Gaspers now has taken is taking his stop currently.
And look at how much they have at hand over Miroslav Juricek. That is right now 2-3 seconds between Gary McAreevy and Miroslav Juricek.
I give Miroslav credit for trying something different. Just didn't work out as we watch the spin for C. Love. You can see it was heading into Spoon. Unfortunately, Elson just got a little too close to the back of that car. Oh, actually, you know what? Looks like he was already spinning from that angle.
Yeah, C. Love, he lost it on the brakes. They're already going into Spoon 2. And then Steve Elson, you're going to see no time to react. And sadly hits the rear of C. Love.
Yeah, so I can't really blame Steve on that one. Just unfortunately at the wrong place at the wrong time. But that is another position gained by Steve. This does change the complexion in our Spec 2 race. Haycox is still, well, he will be your leader. Ramon Regalado needs to pit, but this
And
moves Bob Kern into second.
for first, Daniel Sadler actually really lucky with Aaron Depoy, as just now he overtakes him, and he actually did not get held up by Aaron Depoy, so he had quite some draft for the majority of this lap. So maybe Sadler the lucky winner of this pit cycle.
Well, that's a lot of luck, because if I was him, I certainly would have gone in at the same time as Gaspers. They now swing it through the final chicane. Let's see if he comes in this time. He really can't push it too far. And indeed, he comes in. As he hits the pit speed limiter, David Gaspers is coming up the backstretch, but he's also got a fight on his hands in the form of Jerry McAreevy, who doesn't seem interested in overtaking. He had a big lift coming up to 130R. Can Sadro manage to come out in time?
Daniel Sadler right now on the pit stall. This is gonna get really close between himself and David Gaspers.
Just getting to the end of his pit stop. A very quick stop. 10 seconds compared to Gaspers' 11. He's getting his speed up, but it takes a while for these cars to chug up to top speed. He is going to be out ahead, but from what we've seen, I'm not sure that that is going to mean much.
Tells you how lucky Daniel Sadler was with the amount of draft he got off Aaron Depoy. Either way, Daniel Sadler, he utilized his strategy to perfection. Now David Gaspers has to do it yet again. He has to once again get around Daniel Sadler for that first place this time. Last time it was for second place. This time it's for first place. And I'm pretty sure Daniel Sadler will defend with all his might.
And Gaspers with a little bit of an off. Pushing hard himself coming out into the Dunlop. So he is, as you said, not immune from mistakes. But let's run you down now that the pit stops have finished, starting with our leader. Daniel Sadro is back up in front where he qualified, but he has not led most of this race, incredibly, because from last to first, the car in second place now, David Gaspers, climbed through the field and managed to put himself into the top spot. We'll see if he can get that back and how hard Sadro will defend. Following those two is Jerry McAreevy in the number 67. McAreevy could be the dark horse. These top three are the most likely to take the win. The draft has been powerful enough that we could see some sneaky moves on the last lap. You go down to fourth place. Juracek, who pitted early, took a risk, tried to see if he could use a little bit of clear track to jump them, but it just did not work. Unfortunately, in fact, it bit him, and he's lost time. Michael Shaw is the last of the top five, also pitted with Juracek, but even after the pit stops, he lost the draft, fell away from the 84, and rounds out our top five. What's the next five look like, Steph?
In Haycox in sixth place over the first place of your Spec 2 championship within the race. Francesco Bernardo, he is right now in seventh place. He was also, if I remember correctly, one of the first drivers to pit here today with his 058 machine down in 8th place. Bob Kern right behind him, the 206, second place in the Spec 2 race right now. He came from 17th up to 9th. Also quite a feat there at his end, but obviously very well overshadowed by the 22nd to 2nd.
And we have a lead change. David Gaspers down the front stretch, slingshotted by Daniel Sadro. He managed to get it done into turn one. Let's watch this one more time. Once again, Sadro, for the second time in a row, does not defend to the inside. You think he's thinking long-term here?
I'm pretty sure Daniel Sadler is thinking long-term. He's always thinking long-term, no matter how hard he's fighting with someone, which he has shown quite a few times already when he did fight against me.
Down into the Degners. Drivers making sure not to fall victim to the same issues that many drivers have unfortunately experienced in this race. In fact, I'd wager to say it seems like the majority of our incidents, spins, and problems seem to have been through Degner 1 and Degner 2, Steph.
Oh yeah, that's just the way Degner 1 and 2 are laid out. It's quite some fast, yet very technical and tricky to drive pretty much 90-degree corners. Sorry, right-handers, obviously. But on the inside, very high curbs, and then also quite some banking to them. But the curbs on the outside are straight, so technically are falling away. And because of that, you're gonna run off and have a little bit of trouble with your rear tire, spin them out and spin around, as Danny Sato tries to spin around the order they two run.
He's going to do it outside of 130R. Gaspers has been the aggressive one between these two, and he holds onto it as just going off onto the AstroTurf, and curbs opens the door as they go 3 wide, and now McAreevy is making his move. He's got the inside into the first part of the chicane, but can he get the run off the outside of the second half? He at least guns it sooner than Gaspers, and he's up to the front in one corner from third to first. Gonna try and come back at him. Gaspers does not want to sit in second place. He likes leading this race. Sadro looks to follow him through on that line. Now he breaks a little bit earlier, settles back into third place, but back up to the front for the DH driver.
From third to first to second for Gary McAreevy. His first lead lap didn't last all that long.
Well, that shows us what's possible, though. I think that maybe is an inkling of what we have in store for the final lap. I wonder if maybe that's what McAreevy was doing, thinking, hey, I could maybe, if I could get these two too wide through some sections, I could steal the win away. Right on board with him, looking ahead at Gaspers. Doesn't try and make it too wide into the first Degner, at least. He's a little smarter than that. Not missing much of anything through the rest of the field. The only close battle that we have is for 7th between Bernardo and Kern. Two-and-a-half-minute laps. I believe we've got 3 to go currently. Out towards Spoon Curve one more time. It was the exit of here that kicked things off last time. Sadro getting himself a run, trying to go for the lead. Had it for just a brief moment ahead of Gaspers, but eventually put him back into third where he is now as we look off the gearbox of David Gaspers. Gaining speed. What is McAreevy going to do? Is he going to try and pull the same move? He gets right up behind him, but he does not try to overtake.
Interestingly enough, up to this point, Sadro was dropping ever so slightly off these two drivers. So yeah, Sadro, I don't know, seems to be struggling ever so slightly at this point in time with about 5 minutes left to go.
And we're understanding that it is actually 2 to go now instead of 3. It was awful tight.
I'm pretty sure it's 3 to go here.
Okay.
With 2 minute 27 lap times.
Yeah, they should be able to get that
6 seconds
in.
to go.
All this has been happening ahead of Juracek in fourth, who is about 4 seconds back. And we've seen some crazy things in the Weekend Warrior, so I would not count out the possibility that all 3 cars come together and Juracek is the one who comes through taking the victory. It all depends on how hard they fight in these final laps. We have seen them start to battle with one another in these couple laps after the pit stops, but it has mostly been single file. So kind of hard to read exactly how this is going to play out. And did Adam Bradshaw have to take an extra stop here? Did he have an issue?
Yes, he was involved in the first, second lap crash. So he had to take his spare car quite early, and now he's taking his scheduled pit stop.
We talked about how long of a lap it is here as we take a look at Bob Kern, continuing to see if he can try and overtake Bernardo. Every single car still running is still on the lead lap, and that includes Bradshaw, who is exiting his pits as we watch this fight work its way into the hairpin. Kern, another one that seems like he's kind of just been riding back there. Oh, and Steve Elson off once again.
Guess where it was?
It was in the Degners. That curb to the outside just seems awful nasty today.
Yeah, it is, because these cars are on the rear quite low to the ground, so they surf up on the crest of the curb and thus lose out on the rears, like Steve Elson perfectly demonstrated there. Thus, though, a quick J-turn and is on his way again, down in 10th place.
We watch the leaders back onto the front stretch. McAreevy, oh, he's making his move. He's going to try and pressure something out of David Gaspers. Sadro follows McAreevy as they come to the outside of turn 1. Braking starts to go back in favor of the DH driver. McAreevy slots into line. Wonder if McAreevy thinks this might be the last lap.
Well, the good thing is they get the white flag displayed on their screen, so they most definitely know if it is the last lap or not. But I'm pretty sure that we still have one more to go.
Kern trying to make a pass down to the inside into turn 1. Francesco Bernardo now finds himself demoted 1.
That's interesting, because I saw Bob Kern overtake Bernardo through the 130R, so that means that Bernardo came back onto Bob Kern through the Casio triangle.
Some fierce fighting in the mid-pack, but back up to the leaders. Sadro, you talked about him struggling through parts of the circuit. This looks to be one of them. He falls back to a gap of 0.7 of a second on the way to the hairpin.
Yeah, it seems like Sadler used up his tires during this race. Maybe it's down to his driving style or his setup. Either way, he really is struggling, especially out of slow turns and through the slower mid-speed turns.
Through Spoon Curve. This is another portion where they're going to get a hefty dose of slipstream. What is McAreevy going to do this time? Last time on the front stretch, he used it to try and make a pass. It didn't quite work. Gaspers drifting off to the racing line, and he's not going to cover the inside, which McAreevy is going to gladly take as they come up to 130R. Oh, but he's not quite brave enough through that corner. You could see just how quickly Gaspers swings back through. In fact, so slow was McAreevy that Sadro manages to get to the inside into the chicane. They can't squabble too much or they'll start to lose touch with Gaspers, who is pushing hard. They're still side by side, and indeed, they are almost a second back from the DH driver as the white flag comes out.
With 4 seconds to spare, Gaspers now has 1 second lead over these two, and they're still side by side.
This is playing right into David's hands. Daniel does have the inside into the first corner. McAreevy, who fights it, eventually has to give up the ghost. Oh, and he's coming back at him, though.
Oh!
He's gonna give it. Oh, a big mistake from Sadro off course. I think that's going to be a cut course penalty on top of it. If he's serving it, he's serving it very, very slowly.
Either way, David Gaspers now clearly away from this pack, 2.2 seconds back to Gary McAreevy. If he doesn't make a mistake in the last few corners, he has this win in the back.
2.3 seconds between himself and McAreevy. That is far too hard for them to overcome without something completely out of their hands happening to David Gaspers. this did bring Miroslav Juracek. We haven't been watching him. He's up to 2.2 seconds behind Makarivi and Sadro, but that looks like a little bit too late between them. As that was happening, we missed Francesco Bernardo and Bob Kern battling. Francesco comes out on top for the moment. He is in 7th.
Yeah, exactly. And David Gasper's he's actually not opening his gap. He's down now to 2.199 seconds. So Gary McReevy most definitely right now the faster car, just not fast enough to catch David Gaspers in the last 3 turns.
Certainly doesn't seem like it. Gaspers comes up to 130R. I would not have really thought that this would be this likely and this sort of race where David Gaspers went from exactly last on the field to take the win here today. You talk about a driver who is a master of his own domain. David Gaspers cannot be stopped. He is going to take yet another win, this one in Japan. Sadro in second, ahead. Sadro in third, behind Makarivi, so loses more critical points to our points leader. Shaw going to get a 4th place, but what about our battle for 5th? For 6th place. 7th place, I believe. Timing and scoring lying to us a little bit here at the end. Francesco Bernardo smoothly through the final chicane. Kern doesn't have an answer. He's going to have to settle for 8th. Not really many battles, even though everybody else still on the lead lap for our field. So we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around, and on screen you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Suzuka International Racing Course. We just watched round 9 here in the Weekend Warriors, and if you missed it, You missed one of the most stunning comeback drives we've ever seen in this series. David Gaspers started from last on the field. He didn't get a qualifying time in, as was the only car not to qualify. He managed to climb all the way up before we even hit halfway in the race and take the lead and eventually come away with the victory. Jerry McAreevy did finish in second. It was almost, you could say, his battling with third place Daniel Sadro that cost them a chance at the victory, squabbling, losing them the chance to get in the draft and take it away from Gaspers at the end. Juracek tried an alternate strategy compared to those around him. It didn't pay off. He did finish fourth at the least. Shaw, with the same strategy, also got a top 5. Ian Haycox was our winner in the Spec 2, finishing 6th overall, with Francesco Bernardo finishing 7th. Bob Kern takes 2nd in Spec 2, 8th overall, and Ramon Regalado, the final step of the podium in the Spec 2, 9th overall. Steve Elson, unfortunately, a couple of mistakes cost him what could have been a much better finish, but he gets a top 10 at the least.
Jeff Jacobson, he himself gains 3 positions to come home in 11th place. Seeloff, after quite some interesting problems through Degner, he himself finishes in 12th place. 13th went to a very quiet race of John P. O'Donnell. John Fitterer, wrong way. He went from 7th down to 14th. Sadly for him, he ran into quite some problems here today. Gary Walbot, he finishes in 15th place after gaining 5 positions in this race. Izanumi, new face to the series, he finished in 16th place. Stevie Ray, also not the race for him. He finishes in 17th after starting in 13th. And the boy, the last car on the lead lap, he also had some problems, if I remember correctly, but he managed to stay on the lead lap after all. Now, Adam Bradshaw, he finished 1 lap down. He's actually the only car to finish being 1 lap down in 19th. Gabe Nail, first car not to finish 10 laps down. In 20th, 21st went to David Garrido Sanchez, and Aaron Fergale down in 22nd.
Sure was a did not start for today. But speaking of starts, as we pull David Gaspers in to talk to him about his race, let's start with the beginning. And David, off the line, we noticed by the time you came around to complete lap 1, I believe you were in 14th or something incredible from last place. How did you manage that charge? Talk us through it.
Somehow we had to wait a long time for the green flag, so no one really knew what to do, and some of the other cars were really slow, so I think I already overtook 4 cars before turn 1 because of it.
Yeah, we're watching... Oh, go ahead.
Then I think later on 2 of the other cars in front of me collided, so that wasn't that hard to get those places, but yeah, I got quite lucky in the first few.
We're watching the replay now, and just as you say that, there we saw the cars coming together. That was a mighty fine drive, not just on the first lap, but the race as a whole. Once you caught the leaders, it looked like you were still pretty aggressive about trying to get to the front. You didn't feel like that was a risk, trying to make moves such as into the first Degner?
I don't know. The one in the Degner was a bit problematic because if I hadn't braked way too much, I would have ended my race there since Miroslav didn't stay on the track. But other than that, I just wanted to get ahead and see if I would be able to get them out of the draft, which didn't.
And then, of course, when the pit stop started to come, we were wondering whether or not you would maybe try to let the cars go by and pit early just so that you could gap them that way. Do you think that would have been possible? Or is it the draft too powerful that they could just pit the next lap and still be close enough to reel you back in?
It might be possible, but I had to drive to the halfway point, so I knew how much fuel to take.
That's true. You did come in a little bit late. Well, this really put our jaws on the floor. We talked about in the intro about the possibility of you taking the win. We just really didn't think that it would happen the way that it did. Congratulations, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you.
That was our winner, David Gaspers. Up next, Steph is going to be talking to Jerry McAreevy, who had a nice fight with Sadro at the end.
Yeah, second place for Gary McAreevy there. And I have to ask, what do we need to do to finally have a balance of Gaspers, Gary?
If David's internet cuts out, maybe.
No, he has proven last week that even then he can race on his phone internet.
Yeah, he's pretty fast.
No matter the technology, he always is fast. Either way, Gary, still a very great result for you starting in third place, fighting so much for that first place. Not really coming out in first place, but still second place. You must feel quite happy about that one.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when we were doing this setup. I'd forgot we were going to do the full GP version, so I just decided to kind of hang back and see what happened. And it was a good battle with Daniel. It was a really good race. I really enjoyed it.
Well, coming up next week, we are going to go to quite a different track. How are you looking forward to that one?
I'm not sure where we are, to be honest.
Summit
but,
Point.
All right. I'll probably be working, so if I'm going to be there, I'll be starting from the back.
Well, maybe you can do what we just saw from David Gasperston.
I'll certainly give it a try.
Well, thank you very much, Gary, for talking to us. And once again, congrats on second place.
Cheers, guys.
That was second place, Jerry McAreevy. Third, Daniel Sadro losing critical points to Gaspers in the championship with very few rounds left to go. But Dan, looking at this race itself, did you see that Gaspers was going to be starting from the tail end of the field? And then if you knew that, were you shocked that he showed up behind you as quickly as he did?
Well, I did know that Gasper started at the back. I kind of was suspicious when I qualified in pole, so I knew something was wrong. It really didn't surprise me all that much to see him come up as quickly as he did. I know he can be pretty good at scything through the field, and I assume that he probably, people saw him behind them and were maybe racing him a little less aggressively, or maybe blocking a little less than they might otherwise. But no, it didn't really surprise me to see him come up so quickly.
Towards the end, it was down to you three, Gaspers, McAreevy, and you. And coming to the final lap, you and Jerry seemed to be fighting quite a bit amongst each other. Were you frustrated by that? Did you worry that it would lose you the draft with Gaspers?
No. I mean, I was kind of expecting it to be fun. I've raced against Jerry a few times, and I know I can have a good, clean, solid race against him. I screwed it up, and I was just starting to make more mistakes, and then of course on the last lap went off track, and just that cost me everything. But no, it was great, and I had no unhappiness towards Jerry there at all.
Glad to see you managed to enjoy the fight. Next week, though, we're going to Summit Point, and very different, very short lap time compared to here, and a lot narrower track. If Gasper shows up, do you think maybe there's a possibility you could get in front of him and just hold him based on defense? Or what are your thoughts going over there?
Well, I might be able to do that for a lap or two, but he's really good at pretty much everywhere, and if he enjoys the track, he'll be there, and he'll be certainly showing us who the real competition is.
Certainly will be. Well, still managed a podium today, even though you started it on pole. Congratulations getting to spray the champagne.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
That was Dan Sadro, third place finisher here today. And it's going to close us out, of course, for our broadcast, or for our interviews, as well as for our broadcast, honestly. But a big thank you to our sponsor for this season, to Sim Stickers. Again, if you would like to check out to see what kind of products they have, you can check them out at simstickers.co.uk. Also, a big thank you goes to iRacing for putting us on the iRacing Esports Network. Subscribe to their channel by going to their YouTube page, clicking the big red button that says subscribe, and you won't miss a moment. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And also thanks to the team today, Stefan, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook, Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram, GSRC_RAM. A week from now, we're going to West Virginia. That'll be Summit Point, Sunday, August 18th at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.